And a new study out right now, found a record number of auto loans are actually underwater. Now, the average amount owed on trade-ins reaching an all-time high, meaning their outstanding loan balance is higher than the actual value of the car. For more, let's get behind the wheel in a segment we call In This Economy. All right, joining me now to talk about the stress on car loans is Autos Director at S&P Global Mobility, Thomas Libby. Thomas, thank you for joining me. So how did we get into this mess?
Well, thanks. First of all, thanks for having me. What's happened is cars have gotten more and more the last 10 or 20 years. And so what's happened is customers have been purchasing more and more expensive cars. And what's happened is they've actually been buying cars, and the loans have been going up also, and the cars have been depreciating. And so what's happened is you've got into a situation where actually the loans are more than the actual value of the car. And that's a problem for the consumer. So it's primarily been due to the increased price of cars, which is driven by the increased cost of making new automobiles and new light trucks, which are driven by several things. But that's the primary driver of it.
So what's the financial commitment for a car payment for the average American?
Well, right now, the average loan actually, the monthly payment on a loan for a new vehicle is somewhere in the vicinity between $775. Obviously, for a lease, it's less, but so that's what it is for the average vehicle. Now, obviously, there's a range that includes your luxury vehicles, your high-priced vehicles, as well as your lower-priced vehicles. Again, about $770, somewhere between $750 and $775 a month. That's the average.
So this will make it more difficult for customers to trade in their current car. Why is that?
Well, what happens is the customer, first of all, when the customer purchases a new vehicle with a loan, when they drive that new vehicle off the lot, the value of that new vehicle declines dramatically in about 5 minutes, to be candid with you. As soon as they drive it off the lot, it becomes a used vehicle, and so the value is a lot less than what they paid for it. And so what happens is the vehicle continues to depreciate, and sometimes it's depreciating at a greater rate than the loan. And so the loan then, they owe more on the loan than the car's worth. So then when they go back to buy a new vehicle again, what happens is they owe more on the new vehicle than it's worth. So if they trade in that vehicle, not only do they have to give the vehicle back to the dealer, but frequently they have to then pay the dealer to take the vehicle in exchange. So it becomes sort of a snowball effect, and it gets worse and worse. And the way the dealers will try to address this is, and make the monthly payment affordable for the customers, they'll just make the loan longer and longer. So instead of a 6-year loan, they'll have a 7-year loan, 8-year loan. And to be candid, that just makes the situation even worse, because then it takes longer to pay it off. So the situation tends to continue over time. So frankly, the consumer needs to be aware of what their loan amount is, what's still outstanding on the vehicle, and try, when they go back to the dealer or go online, to make sure they don't let that loan get any bigger, to try to manage the situation.
So what could someone do if they find themselves underwater on the car loan? And what are some things to actually avoid here?
Yeah, good question. So first of all, they're going to want to be aware of what their outstanding loan is on the existing vehicle, and try to not have a higher amount loan going forward. The second thing they have to be careful about is, frankly, remember, the dealer wants to sell the vehicle and the manufacturer wants to sell the vehicle, and they will offer a longer loan. So if hypothetically a customer has a loan that's 60 months, they go back in and they find out they get a 60-month loan on the new vehicle, the monthly payment's going to go way up. They're shocked, and they go, well, how can I avoid that? The way to avoid that is by just instead of a 60-month loan, have an 84-month loan or a 96-month loan. That keeps the monthly payment the same. But the trade-off is that the loan is then longer and longer, and so then the customer is underwater even more. So frankly, the customer should try to avoid the longer and longer loan, because that gets them more underwater down the road. So I would suggest, A, be aware of what your loan is and try to avoid getting a loan for a greater amount, and B, try to not let the dealer and the manufacturer persuade you to have a longer loan. Those 84-month and 96-month loans, they're a real problem, to be candid with you.
All right, Thomas Libby, thank you for those pro tips.